Most people are so consumed by the sound of their own voice that they miss the information that's right in front of them. Intelligence begins not with what you say, but with what you notice. You want to elevate your mind? Start by mastering observation, noticing patterns, reading energy, watching reactions. It's a lost art because we live in a world obsessed with speed and noise. But real power isn't loud, it's precise. And the smartest people in any room are often the quietest, not because they don't have something to say, but because they're collecting information before they speak. When you're constantly speaking, you're not listening. You're not absorbing. You're not paying attention to the shifts, the contradictions, the things people reveal without realizing it. Observation isn't passive, it's strategic. The way someone looks away when they lie. The hesitation in their voice when they answer. The way their feet point toward the exit when they're uncomfortable. These aren't just quirks. They're signals. And the person who knows how to decode them sees the truth that words often hide. Most people walk into a room and immediately try to dominate it. They want to impress. Be heard, be seen. But when you walk in with the mindset of an observer, you don't need to prove anything. You're there to study, to learn, to understand the dynamics that others are too distracted to notice. Who's the influencer in the room? Who's insecure and overcompensating? Who's lying to gain favor? You start to see everything. And when you see clearly, you make smarter moves. Observation also teaches you about yourself. It reveals your blind spots. It shows you where you interrupt, where you assume, where your biases distort reality. You can't sharpen your intelligence if you're always focused outward and never reflect inward. Watch how you speak under pressure, how you respond to criticism, how you listen when someone else is talking. That's how you sharpen your emotional awareness, and emotional awareness is what turns intelligence into influence. But observation takes discipline. You have to train yourself to slow down, to stop reacting to everything, to sit back long enough to see the whole picture. That means controlling your impulses, your desire to be right, your need to always add your opinion. Intelligent people know that the first answer is rarely the full truth. That what's not being said is often more important than what is, and that silence can be your biggest advantage if you learn to use it. Every environment has a language, a rhythm, a pulse. Most people don't hear it because they're too busy trying to talk over it. But when you tune in, everything opens up. You notice who carries weight, who's respected, who's ignored. You see how power moves without ever raising its voice. And when you learn to move in sync with that rhythm, your presence commands attention without ever needing to demand it. Observation isn't about being passive. It's about being tactical. You don't watch because you're afraid to speak. You watch because you're calibrating. You're measuring the temperature of the room before you set your tone. You're learning the rules so you can bend them without breaking. You're identifying the leverage before you make a move. That's intelligence. Not reacting emotionally, responding with intention. You'll notice that the people who talk the most often reveal the most. Not just in what they say, but in how they say it. In what they avoid, in the contradictions between their tone and their words. But you only catch that when you're watching with depth, not listening to reply. Listening to decode, to understand. And once you understand, you gain control. Not over others, but over your environment, your decisions, your responses. Smart people don't just gather information. They apply it. They use what they observe to position themselves better, make sharper decisions, and avoid the traps that others walk into blindly. They know when to lean in, when to pull back, when to wait, and when to strike. Because they've been paying attention the whole time. And when you're watching carefully, nothing ever really catches you off guard. In a world addicted to speed, observation is your advantage. While everyone else is rushing to be first, you'll be the one who's accurate. While they're impulsive, you'll be intentional. While they're trying to impress, you'll be learning what actually moves people. Because the smartest person in the room isn't the one who speaks the fastest. It's the one who understands the room before they say a word. If you want to raise your intelligence, start by questioning yourself, not once, not occasionally, daily. Smart people don't just question the world, they interrogate their own thinking. They turn their attention inward and ask, where did this belief come from? Why do I react this way? What part of this story have I accepted without evidence? Because intelligence isn't about gathering more facts. It's about sharpening your perception of truth. And that begins with dismantling the lies you've been telling yourself. It's easy to question others, easy to critique systems, people, decisions you don't agree with. But the harder, more intelligent thing to do is to examine your own lens. You've been conditioned, we all have, by culture, upbringing, trauma, ego experiences. And if you don't slow down and analyze the frame you're thinking through, you'll move through life defending perspectives that are outdated, reactive, or just flat out wrong. This is where most people plateau. They build an identity around being right, and from that point on, they stop learning, because every challenge to their thinking feels like a threat. Every disagreement feels personal. And instead of exploring a new idea, they get defensive. But intelligence doesn't fear being wrong. It values correction. Because every time you realize you were wrong, you just became less ignorant. Rewiring your mind takes courage. You have to be willing to admit that some of your core beliefs were built on shaky ground. That maybe what your parents taught you was incomplete. That maybe your reaction to rejection isn't about logic, but about childhood pain. That maybe your fear of failure isn't intuition. It's a story you've repeated so many times that it feels like truth. But feeling and fact are not the same. And emotional intelligence means being able to tell the difference. One of the fastest ways to increase your intelligence is to start challenging your own narratives. Every time you say, "I'm just not good at that," stop and ask, is that really true? Or is that something I've repeated so often I stopped questioning it? When you say, "People always leave me," ask, is that a pattern I'm actually experiencing? Or is it one I'm unconsciously recreating because I expect it? You cannot expand your mind while clinging to conclusions you've never dared to unpack. The people who grow the most are the ones who stay open, not naive, not aimless, open. Open to being wrong, open to feedback, open to seeing things they were blind to before. You can't grow if you're always trying to prove how much you know. The moment you stop asking questions is the moment your intelligence starts shrinking. Because knowledge isn't stagnant. It either expands or it withers. Depending on how you use it, you need to get comfortable in the gray. In the space where you don't have an answer yet. In the space where things don't feel certain. That's where intelligence expands, when you can hold two ideas, two contradictions, two possibilities, and still keep thinking. Most people want to reduce everything to black and white. This is good, that is bad, this is success, that is failure, but life is more layered than that. And intelligent people know how to sit in that complexity without rushing to simplify it for comfort. Questioning yourself doesn't mean you don't trust yourself. It means you hold yourself to a higher standard. It means you want to be accurate, not just confident. And that's what separates those who grow from those who stay stuck. The ones who stay stuck are addicted to certainty. The ones who grow are addicted to clarity. And clarity comes from asking better questions. Every time you feel triggered, that's an invitation. Ask, why did that hit me so hard? Every time you're resisting feedback, stop and ask, what part of me feels threatened by this? Every time you're convinced you're absolutely right, pause and ask, what would someone who disagrees with me say? And could they be right in a way I haven't considered? This is how you train your brain to stay agile, stay honest, stay awake. You don't become smarter by memorizing more, you become smarter by thinking deeper. And deep thinking requires discomfort. It requires you to stop trying to win arguments and start trying to understand. It requires you to drop the ego and admit when you're wrong. It requires you to listen more than you speak, reflect more than you react. That's where real intelligence begins, not in knowing everything, but in being teachable enough to learn anything. If you want to sharpen your mind, stop reading for entertainment and start reading for transformation. Too many people treat books like escape pods, ways to avoid reality instead of confront it. But if you're serious about becoming more intelligent, you need to treat reading like training, like the gym for your mind. Because the most powerful thinkers didn't just absorb facts, they trained themselves to process, dissect, and apply what they read. The point isn't how many books you finish. It's how much your thinking changes because of what you read. Real reading, the kind that expands you, doesn't feel easy. It stretches your attention span. It challenges your beliefs. It forces you to sit with uncomfortable ideas. Most people don't want that. They want motivation without reflection. They want to highlight quotes but not wrestle with the meaning. But growth doesn't come from what you agree with. It comes from what pushes against you. The pages that sting, the words that call you out, The chapters that make you uncomfortable, that's how you know you're reading right. When it forces you to confront yourself. When you have to close the book for a minute and ask, why does that hit so hard? When you underline something not because it sounds nice, but because it exposes something in you. Reading with intelligence isn't about volume, it's about confrontation. How deeply a sentence makes you think. How hard it makes you question. How clearly it reveals what you've been ignoring. Don't just read books that validate your worldview. Read things that challenge it, that push you to see from a new angle. If every author you read sounds like an echo chamber, you're not expanding, you're reinforcing. And reinforced thinking, no matter how smart it sounds, becomes stale. You grow by stepping into discomfort. And one of the safest but most effective ways to do that is through reading the words of people you don't immediately agree with. Intelligent reading means pausing, asking, how does this apply to my life? Where am I seeing this pattern show up? What would happen if I actually implemented this? Because consumption without application is just noise. It clutters your mind and makes you feel smart while keeping you exactly where you are. But when you read with the intent to act, every chapter becomes a new tool, every paragraph a new decision, every insight a possible shift. Build the habit of journaling after you read. Not for the sake of productivity, but for clarity. Because your brain doesn't retain what it skims. It retains what it wrestles with. When you write down what impacted you and why, when you break down the insight and reframe it in your own words, you're not just reading, you're thinking. You're making the content part of your wiring. You're turning knowledge into perspective. And read slow. That's something people don't say enough. Intelligence isn't in speed, it's in depth. You don't win anything by finishing a book faster if nothing inside you changes. Slow down. Reread the sentence that shook you. Sit with the paragraph that hit your pride. The world conditions us to skim, to scroll, to consume, to binge. But deep thought doesn't happen at that speed. Read like it matters. Like every sentence could teach you something about yourself. Because if you approach reading that way, it will don't just read non-fiction. Fiction sharpens intelligence too, especially emotional intelligence. Stories teach empathy. Dialogue teaches tone. Conflict teaches motive. Fiction helps you see what people don't say out loud. It helps you read between the lines. And if you want to get sharper in life, in business, in communication, you need to understand people, not just systems. The better you understand how people think and feel, the more intelligently you move through the world. Reading is a mirror and a map. It shows you where you are, and where you could be. But only if you let it. Only if you stop using it to escape and start using it to evolve. You should walk away from a powerful book feeling disturbed. Called out, rewired. The best books aren't the ones you finish. They're the ones that finish you, tear you apart, and put you back together with a clearer mind. There's a difference between reading for comfort and reading for growth. Comfort keeps you safe. Growth wakes you up. And if you want to increase your intelligence, stop numbing your mind with easy content. Pick up the book that challenges you. The one that's dense. The one that intimidates you a little. Because that's where the real sharpening happens. Not in what's familiar, but in what forces you to rise. The company you keep is either sharpening your mind or dulling your edge. It's that simple. Intelligence isn't just shaped by what you consume. It's shaped by who you allow into your space. The people around you are either challenging your thinking or confirming your laziness. They're either making you think bigger or making excuses feel normal. So if you're serious about increasing your intelligence, you need to audit your circle and start asking hard questions about the conversations you're having every day. What do the people around you talk about? Are they discussing ideas, strategies, perspective shifts? Or are they stuck in gossip, distractions, complaints? Because the tone of your environment becomes the ceiling of your thinking. You can't build a sharp mind surrounded by dull conversations. And you can't grow when you're constantly being validated for staying the same. Real growth requires friction. The kind of friction that only comes from being around people who refuse to let you think small. Too many people stay in circles that feel safe, but are mentally stagnant. They choose comfort over evolution, familiarity over challenge. They're afraid of being the dumbest in the room, so they keep themselves in rooms where their mediocrity isn't threatened. But if you're always the smartest person in the room, you're not growing, you're managing ego. And ego has no place in the life of someone who wants to become truly intelligent. You need to be around people who are 2 steps ahead of you. People who think faster, ask better questions, demand higher standards. People who don't care about your excuses. Who will stop you mid-sentence and say, "That's not good enough"? Think deeper. Because that's where your edge gets sharpened. In pressure. In accountability. In truth, you will never elevate in a space where your weakness is never exposed. And you will never learn to think critically if no one ever challenges what you say. But here's the hard part. Being around smarter people will test your identity. It will confront your pride. It will strip you of your need to be the one who knows it all. And most people can't handle that. They confuse temporary discomfort with disrespect. They interpret challenge as rejection. So they leave the room before their mind even has a chance to level up. But intelligence isn't about protecting your pride. It's about outgrowing it. It's about realizing that your need to feel smart could be the very thing keeping you from becoming it. You also need to pay attention to energy. Some people may sound intelligent but carry emotional instability. You can't grow your mind in the presence of emotional chaos. You need to be around people who regulate themselves, who stay calm under pressure, who model composure when it matters. Because intelligence isn't just about what you say. It's about how you handle yourself. And if you're surrounded by people who explode at every obstacle, who panic at every setback, who react emotionally instead of thinking critically, that mindset will rub off on you more than you realize. And don't just think about the loud voices in your life. Pay attention to the subtle ones. The people whose standards affect you without saying a word. The ones who normalize excellence just by how they move. The ones who make you question your own complacency simply by existing in your space. These are the people who lift your baseline, who raise your internal thermostat, who inspire you without ever trying to impress you. That's the kind of presence you need if you want your intelligence to evolve. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Sometimes the people holding you back are the ones closest to you. Friends, family, longtime companions. People who love you but don't challenge you. People who support you emotionally, but sabotage you mentally by feeding your delusions, stroking your ego, and never demanding more from you. If you want to protect those relationships, that's fine. But don't pretend you can grow at full capacity while staying tethered to people who have no interest in rising themselves. Being loyal to the wrong environment is a betrayal to your potential. You don't have to cut people off, but you do have to reposition how much influence they have over your mind. Start spending more time in rooms where intelligence is the standard. Where reading, thinking, questioning, and evolving are part of the culture. Where people look at you sideways if your ideas aren't rooted in logic, evidence, or vision. That's the environment that forces you to level up. You rise with the standards around you. And if you're serious about becoming more intelligent, you have to stop seeking comfort and start seeking challenge. Not every day, not with aggression, but with consistency. One smart conversation can change your trajectory. One question from the right person can undo years of bad thinking. And one shift in environment can elevate your baseline for life. When pressure hits, most people collapse. They react, lash out, shut down, or fall into victimhood. But those who operate with real intelligence don't default to emotion. They default to curiosity. They stay calm, they lean in, and they ask better questions. Because smart people understand that reacting gives away power, while inquiry sharpens it. And if you want to increase your intelligence, especially under stress, you need to learn how to stay curious when everyone else is losing control. Intelligence is not revealed when things are easy. It shows up when your ego is under fire, when your comfort is threatened, when someone challenges your authority. That's where the gap appears, between people who panic and people who pause. Curiosity is the pause, the breath, the space between the trigger and the response. And in that space, if you know how to use it, you can collect data, slow your heartbeat, and assess your next move with clarity. The smarter you are, the more you realize how much you don't know. And that mindset creates humility under pressure. It keeps you grounded. Because instead of spiraling into, "Why is this happening to me?" or "How dare they?" the curious mind starts asking, "What's really going on here? What's this reaction telling me about myself? What information am I missing?" That shift alone can save you from walking into emotional traps and turning small problems into personal crises. Most people were never taught to think this way. They were taught to defend, to react, to take everything personally. They think intelligence is about having quick answers, but real intelligence is the discipline to ask the right questions, especially when your emotions are screaming for attention. Curiosity turns down the volume. It gives your prefrontal cortex a chance to step in and analyze instead of letting your survival brain run the show. So when someone offends you, pause and ask, is this actually about me, or are they projecting something I haven't seen? When a plan falls apart, ask, what can this teach me about my blind spots? When you feel triggered, ask, what's this revealing about my patterns? These aren't soft questions, they're strategic. They redirect your energy toward awareness. And awareness is where intelligence builds. You can't control everything, but you can control how you study it. Life throws curveballs. People will disappoint you. You will be underestimated. Things will go sideways. But your power isn't in preventing the chaos. It's in how you investigate it. Curiosity keeps you mentally agile. It stops you from locking into conclusions too quickly. And in that flexibility, you give yourself room to think like a tactician, not just a reactor. It takes strength to ask questions when you'd rather make accusations. It takes composure to step back and observe when everything in you wants to fire back. But this is the moment intelligence is forged. Not in the heat of emotion, but in the choice to hold space for reason, to think deeper than the surface insult, to consider that maybe this situation isn't personal. It's just revealing a lesson you needed to face. Start practicing it in small moments. When someone disagrees with you, don't rush to prove them wrong. Ask them how they got to that perspective. You might learn something, or you might expose the weakness in their thinking. Either way, you gain data. When someone criticizes you, don't internalize it right away. Ask if there's even 5% truth in it. If there is, that's your growth point. If not, you learn more about their intentions than your identity. That's the power of a curious mind. It uses everything as information, not ammunition. The next time you feel overwhelmed, stop and get specific. Don't say, everything's a mess. Ask, what exactly is causing this stress right now? The more specific your questions, the more powerful your thinking becomes. Vague thoughts lead to emotional spirals. Precise questions lead to actionable solutions. And smart people don't just think better. They question better. It's how they find clarity in the middle of chaos. This doesn't mean you suppress your feelings. It means you learn how to lead them. Curiosity isn't about being emotionless. It's about not being ruled by emotion. It's about seeing fear without obeying it. Seeing anger without unleashing it. Seeing sadness without drowning in it. Emotion gives you clues. Curiosity helps you interpret them. And that's how intelligence grows, not by avoiding what you feel, but by learning how to ask the right questions when you feel it in high-pressure moments. Most people ask low-quality questions. Why does this always happen to me? What if I fail? What will they think? These questions keep your mind stuck in loops. Intelligent people know how to upgrade the quality of their thinking by upgrading their questions. What's the opportunity in this? What is this trying to teach me? What would a wiser version of me do right now? This is how you separate yourself from average thinking. You build a mental system that thrives under pressure, not one that breaks from it. Focus is not something you're born with. It's something you train. And if you don't, the world will train your mind for you. Into distraction, into weakness, into scattered thinking that never leads anywhere meaningful. Intelligence is not just about how much you know. It's about how effectively you direct your energy. You could be the smartest person in the room, but if your focus is fragmented, your results will be too. Every distraction costs you clarity. Every mental detour drains your ability to think critically, to make sharp decisions, and to execute with purpose. You have to treat your focus like a weapon. You don't leave a loaded weapon lying around for anyone to pick up. You guard it. You maintain it. You know exactly when to use it. That's how you need to treat your attention, because what you give your energy to either strengthens your mind or weakens it. And most people are leaking energy all day long. Checking notifications, jumping between tasks, letting anyone access their time and attention like it means nothing. You want to become more intelligent. Start by becoming less available, not just to people, but to everything that doesn't serve your mental discipline. Close the tabs, mute the noise. Stop absorbing content just to fill space. Intelligent people understand the difference between feeding their brain and flooding it. They don't scroll mindlessly. They don't multitask. They focus deeply, intentionally, like a surgeon with a scalpel. because they know that every ounce of their mental energy matters. Focus is built through practice, not inspiration. You don't wait until you feel ready. You train for it. You build blocks of undistracted time. You turn your phone off. You say no to things that dilute your attention. You cut conversations short that serve no purpose. You create a structure where your thoughts can go deep, not wide, because depth is where intelligence expands. Surface level focus creates surface level results. But when you commit to focused time, that's when your thinking becomes sharp, strategic, dangerous in the best way. And it's not just about productivity. This is about identity. If your mind is scattered, your sense of self will be too. You won't know who you are, what matters, what direction you're moving in. You'll be swayed by every new opinion, pulled into every drama, chasing validation instead of creating value. Discipline and focus creates discipline and identity. And that's what intelligent people guard fiercely. The clarity of who they are and what they're building. This means you must also control your environment. Your surroundings shape your mind. If you work in clutter, you think in clutter. If you're surrounded by noise, your thoughts will be noisy. Intelligent people don't just rely on willpower. They create a space that protects their mental clarity. They eliminate chaos. They design routines. They build boundaries not to shut people out, but to keep their vision clear. Because they know that one weak moment of distraction can cost them hours of mental momentum. Start tracking your attention. Notice what pulls you off course. Ask yourself why. Every time you shift from focused work to a text message, a notification, a thought spiral, catch it. Don't judge it, track it. You can't train what you don't see. The more self-aware you become of your focus leaks, the faster you can patch them. You build intelligence not just by learning new information, but by protecting the mental bandwidth you already have. Your brain is not designed to multitask. That's a lie you've been sold to make you feel productive while staying mediocre. Smart people single task. They give their full attention to what's in front of them. They finish before they switch. They resist the urge to bounce around. Because they know that intelligence isn't just in knowing things, it's in processing them deeply. And you can't do that when your mind is halfway here, halfway there, pulled in 5 directions with zero force behind any of them. Focus is also how you build trust with yourself. Every time you say you'll do something and then get distracted, you weaken your self-respect. You teach your brain that your word means nothing. But when you sit down and eliminate distractions and do what you said you would do, you build internal credibility. That's what intelligent people carry, integrity with themselves. They don't just talk about discipline. They live it. Train yourself to focus longer than it's comfortable. That's where your edge gets sharp. Push through the boredom. Push through the mental noise. Push through the itch to check your phone, to open a tab, to quit early. The longer you can hold your mind on a single problem, a single goal, a single idea, the stronger and more intelligent that mind becomes. Because intelligence is not just knowledge. It's endurance. It's the ability to stay present, to stay deep, to stay clear when the rest of the world is scattered.